This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 150,000 titles for your smartphone, tablet, or desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. Also, help us keep Star Trek discussion coming to you each day by becoming a Trek FM patron through Patreon. Get access to exclusive content and become part of the team. You'll find all the details at patreon.com/trekfm. That's patreon.com/trekfm.
Hi, I'm Anthony Montgomery, Ensign Travis Mayweather on Star Trek Enterprise, and you're listening to Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5. I am your captain for this mission, Captain Brandon Shea Matella, and this is going to be our second special episode that we're doing for you for the month of March. And next week we've got our interview with Phyllis Strong coming out on the 31st, and then we'll be back to our normal every other week schedule. But again, we've been doing so well with our numbers with Warp 5, we just wanted to give you guys something special to have for the month of March, because we really appreciate our listeners. So we wanted to give you a couple episodes. And joining me again on this little mission is Patrick. How's it going, Patrick?
It's going good. How you been?
Not too bad. I've been reading a lot of X-Files books.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have a friend that runs an X-Files podcast, and I've been following along. His name's Tony Black, and his show's called The X-Cast, and it's a lot of fun. So I've been following along with, watching the episodes as the podcast is going, and he's been doing some novels and stuff, and I'm reading short stories right now, and some of the short stories are pretty good.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've been doing the reverse. I've been going backwards to Sherlock.
I never really got into Sherlock. My wife loves it. We watched the first two seasons, and I watched the first episode of season 3, and I'm just like, I just don't care about this show.
Yeah,
that's the one with Cumberbatch, right?
Yeah, I do that one, but I'm also reading the old books, and I watch Elementary as well.
The first one, so spoilers for the very first one, but I was watching it with my wife, and I haven't read anything Sherlock and whatnot, but halfway through the episode, I turned to my wife and I'm like, it's the cab driver. And Marcy's like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, they were tracking the guy, and he was in the back of the car, the guy they thought they were tracking, so the only logical answer is it's the cab driver.
Yes, very true. So you could have been Sherlock Holmes, is what you're saying.
Just for that one. None of the other ones,
you figured it out faster than he did, though.
So I didn't guess any of the other ones, all the other ones, and then I'm trying to guess all the other ones, and I'm wrong on all of them. I'm like, it was the butler.
With the candlestick in
the
observatory.
In the kitchen.
Yes. So. No. All right. So today we were chit-chatting on Facebook, and we decided let's talk about the aliens that appear in both Enterprise and other series.
Yeah. Because you brought this up, and I thought it'd be a good way for us to talk a little bit about, all that, what could or could not. As of the recording of this, we're recording this on the 18th. We still don't know exactly whether or not those were Klingons that leaked photo was, and all the fan uproar about it. And so we thought we would talk a little bit about the history of how Enterprise took aliens to a new level. This was your idea, and I thought it was a really good idea. So
awesome, thanks. Yeah, I think it could add something to the conversation, especially with Klingons, how they tried to retro back to why Klingons look so different, and then you have the Vulcans that act so different, and you have a couple others that you see here and there.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, who do you want to start out with?
I guess Vulcans would probably be the go-to, right?
Yeah. So tell me, how do you feel about the Vulcans in the other series, and then how they were portrayed in Enterprise?
I actually like it. I like the fact that we kind of see them before their purely logical days, before the Spock and Tuvoks of the world existed. Because at first you have T'Pol, who seems to be exactly the same, and then you find out later on that there's just a small sect of them that are really pushing towards this pure logic, not lying, not cheating, not stealing. But the rest of them are pretty underhanded. They're verging towards Romulans, not Vulcans.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, the Vulcans were always an interesting one. When I first watched it in its initial run, I'm like, I don't know what they're doing here, and I don't really like what they're doing with the Vulcans because they're so different and everybody's so emotional as a Vulcan. And when you watch First Contact, you get the impression that they're stoic at that time. When that guy comes off the ship and he puts his hand up, he gives the Vulcan salute, and then Zefram Cochrane just reaches out to him for the handshake and whatnot. They have the image of what we think a Vulcan is, stoic, no emotions or anything like this. But then we watch Broken Bow, and, Ambassador Saval is all like raising his voice and getting upset. So it always felt weird to me. And then, you watch the series and you get to that Vulcan arc in season 4, and you see what they've done. They bring in the Katra of Surak, and it's always something to me that it feels like they never planned that out from the beginning. But it's something that they just kind of came across as they were developing their stories. And while I like the change, to me it always feels like it's so sudden because these Vulcans that we're seeing, it's only 100 years before we see Spock in the original series. And if you go chronologically through time, for an entire culture to go and to switch how they're behaving, to follow this role of Surak within 100 years, especially a race of aliens as long-lived as the Vulcans, just doesn't quite, even still at this time, doesn't quite feel right for me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way in like the 100-year switch, but in reality, did it have to be the whole culture that changed, or does it just have to be the people at top that changed? Because we see there's like a subculture that's very stoic, and they're considered rebels, but they kind of, towards the end of season 4, push the current Vulcans out of power.
Okay, yeah, I guess I always assumed that. What did they? Here, I'm trying to remember now what they call it. The the Vulcan. What's Saval? He's just the ambassador, right? I guess. So I guess really the only Vulcans that we're seeing are these Vulcans with high power. Right, so maybe it is just the Vulcans in power, but to me, seeing the Vulcans in power represents the entire culture to me. But so I've never really thought of that. Maybe the majority of the population isn't that way. I never thought of it that way myself.
Right, because I think it's funny because what made me think of it is I forget. It was another podcast on the network that was talking about. It was. I'll actually get this right this time and not give it to the wrong show, but it was actually Earl Grey that was talking about how Picard brings up that it's a utopian society and no need for money, and then in every other series we see them with money. Mm-hmm. I mean, so what does the average person in the Federation live like? And it's probably a lot different than the crews of the flagship Enterprise. And I would assume that would be true of pretty much every culture, which, again, the Vulcans are actually part of the Federation anyway, but we always kind of, whenever we say Federation, everyone kind of just assumes humans, and then all the other groups are just themselves. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I mean, I guess that's how I rationalize it, as this group takes power from that group, which makes the culture seem more rational when we have all types in the middle.
Yeah, you're probably right about that, because that Surak movement that you see in season 4 seems like it's a pretty large movement, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have like a hidden base, and they're being tracked by the heads.
They have a hidden base. They've got like secret underwater shark defense mechanisms and like invisible jets. Right. Oh wait, no, that was James Bond.
Yeah, right. And $1 million.
And $1 million.
But they did, if you do remember, they had at that point had banned the Vulcan mind meld. Mm-hmm. To only certain people, which 100 years later is like, his go-to move sometimes. Mm-hmm. So obviously things had changed in those 100 years. And I guess depending on where you are culturally, 100 years there could be drastic changes. I mean, getting to computers took us thousands of years, and getting to flying spaceships took us another, 10.
See, but technology is different than, I think, social change. Like, I mean, to me, it almost, like, I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but it seems like racism and homophobia and intolerance is almost on a rise again. Like there's, maybe it's my exposure to social media and what's going on, but it almost seems like it's people are becoming less tolerant the more you ask them to become tolerant, so it's hard. I think it's hard for societies to make those changes. So that's kind of why I thought that the 100 years, especially with a race as long-lived as the Vulcans, would not be plausible, because human beings live 75 years, 70 years or something like that. And even in that lifetime, we've had a lot of change technologically, but socially and societal, we've had a lot of advancements for minorities and things like that, but the tolerance is still not there,
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think that actually goes more towards the who's in power argument. Because do you think that there was ever all that great a tolerance in the first place in some areas?
For us, or are we talking us
right now, like in general?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this, it's not necessarily that intolerance and racism is on a rise. It's just kind of always been there, and because of who, maybe not necessarily the person that was running the country, but the groups that were running the country, you wouldn't really show it. And now people feel more empowered to just show who they really are.
Maybe it does have to do with the fact with the rise of social media and stuff. People they have something to give themselves voice to, and so they feel more able to speak out against the things that they don't like, right? And so there's all this intolerance that's coming out. I don't know. It's just I like what you're saying in that maybe it was just the people in power. So that helps me actually with my headcanon in this 100-year gap. Maybe that these were the people. Maybe they were that way. So we saw them all calm and logical, the leaders in First Contact when they landed in Bozeman, Montana there. And then now we've got a different group of Vulcans in power who are very kind of emotional and angry and not following the ways of Surak quite like they should be. And they were repressing things, and so now we've got this Alt-Vulcan movement, right?
Right.
And now this Alt-Vulcan movement, when they release the Katra of Surak, brings it back to a different people in power. I like that. That's good. Thank you. Anything else you want to add on the Vulcans here before we?
No, I guess that's really they didn't really make them look different or anything like that, so.
But one race that they did change over time is the Romulans. I mean, if you look at them in the original Star Trek series, they look regular Vulcans, basically, is what they look like, right? They've got brown hair, normal hair, and stuff. And when you get to the Next Generation, they've basically all got black hair, except for Sela, and they've all got this ridges on their forehead. Right? So the Romulans changed significantly, and their makeup changed quite a bit from the original series onward. And they kept that look in Enterprise. They kept that ridges, like Admiral Valdor, the Romulan from Season 4. They kept that look for the Romulans with the black hair and stuff.
Yes, now I can't remember. Did they ever... I don't think they ever went back and tried to fix why that was, right?
No, they didn't, and that's what they should have done with the Klingons, but that's a whole nother story.
We'll get to those guys.
We'll get to those guys later. So what we're talking about in this episode, though, as well, is partly, again, because with the discussions inspired in part, I think, because of this Discovery reveal of could these be Klingons, and there's a lot of people in uproar. But, I mean, changing the way aliens look has been something that's been done since the beginning.
Every show that's come out has had its pushback by the fans that this is not a real Star Trek for X, Y, or Z reason. But
no.
But we kind of just look at it, go, oh, they don't look right. I don't like that. Okay, it's fine now.
Did they say that about Voyager? Because I know they said that about Next Generation. They're like, this isn't Trek because it's not Kirk. And then they went, when Deep Space Nine, this isn't Trek because it's on a station and not on a ship. Did they say that about Voyager?
Yes, because they said at first it was, this is not Trek because it's a female captain. And then they got over that pretty quickly. And it was, well, this isn't an Enterprise. So we just fell back onto the different show. Then we came up with Enterprise, which was literally named Enterprise. And they were like, well, this isn't Trek because it happens before Kirk.
Okay. And this isn't just Discovery's not Trek because, I don't know, pick your reason.
Yeah, well, fake Klingons and wasn't it multiple crews over multiple
I'm so excited
ships?
about that.
Yeah, but so am I, and I'm worried.
It's going to be awesome.
It could go great or it could go bad, but it's going to go that way in 3 episodes. You're going to know quick.
Well, we're already on the tangent of this, but what I'm looking forward to this is, television is so good nowadays in the 13-episode format. You know, like there's such great I love Star Trek, but honestly, some of these new shows that are out there are better because the stories are so concise because they have to tell a certain amount. These books almost like each season is like a book in a series now. And you know, each season builds upon the previous one, you know, and the show that really started that was The Sopranos. Yeah, we had a kind of a repeating format in Deep Space Nine, but really the show that started it was The Sopranos, and it was a different type of storytelling. But there's so much good television out there now. I don't even really want to go to the movie theater anymore because there's so many good TV shows out there.
Yeah, and their quality is movie quality now.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be like going back to Enterprise, you know, your special effects in movies were great, and then you'd have Fraggle Rock show up in an Enterprise show. But now, what's going to show up in Discovery is going to be every bit as good as a blockbuster.
I think so.
You know,
yeah.
and that's crazy. And like you said, it's the 13 episodes, straight concise, which will allow Star Trek to do what it initially wanted to do and give a real commentary on current events or recent current events and do it very quickly and very concisely without the waste.
Right. Yeah, I think it's cool. Okay, back to our original topic here, aliens. Who do we want to talk about next? You want to do the Andorians or the Tellarites?
Yeah, let's do the Andorians because I like how there's two different versions of them.
Okay, I got to ask, what the heck was that green thing in Star Trek The Next Generation when Lal was trying to choose what she was? What do you think that was?
I have no idea. It was weird.
I don't know. It was like, it was the guy from the Lucky Charms.
Yes, and we just had St. Patrick's Day, so it works.
Yeah, it works. I think, though, in hindsight, they should have made that an Enar.
Oh, that would have worked. Well, it would have worked better.
Would have worked better. Like, you go to the Enars and they're just like fluorescent green.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, there's another race. I mean, look at Andorians, right? I mean, Andorians, in the original series, I think it was always intended for the original series that the antenna were supposed to be the ears.
Yes.
Because you don't see ears on Andorians then, right?
Correct.
But in Enterprise, it's not. They're like a sensory. They can like sense feelings and things that are not feelings, but like, I don't know, electromagnetic, whatever.
Like cat's whiskers or something.
Yeah.
And they did them great, though. They had them moving, and they weren't just like these stationary things that kind of just sat there and didn't move and looked odd. And again, that's technology back in, you know, the original series. People were just like, "Ooh, he has antennas. That's awesome." But then by then, if they put the same thing out, we would be like, "Come on," you know. But I do like, and then they had they added in a whole just pure white race of them, right? Am I remembering?
Yeah,
this
the
wrong?
Enar. Those are the Enar.
You know, and yeah, and then we were just we just bought it. We're like, "Oh, it's colder there. That's cool."
Right, and that's why they're blue, and everything about them is blue.
Yeah.
Like it's a good change, right? It's a way to modernize how the aliens are going to look. I mean, I don't want my aliens to look like they looked in the 60s.
Correct.
You know, I'm expecting technology to change, like, and I'm expecting advancements in makeup to make them look different. Like, look at Worf. Worf didn't look the same at the end of his Deep Space Nine run as he did in Season 1 of The Next Generation. Like, his makeup was changing every season. His forehead ridges are not the same every time you see him.
Right. Yeah, and he but quite honestly, he looks better at the end. I mean, look at his sash in the first season of Next Generation. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. Didn't look very Klingon.
Well, the sash in the first season, though, is the same sash that Kor had in the original series, like that gold,
yes,
almost like a potato sack that's dyed gold and then like sliced. It's that same sash.
Yeah, but I much prefer the one they give him after that, where it looks like a warrior's, or what I would think of a futuristic race's warrior's
the metal
sash.
Yeah.
You know, like, and another tangent. It's very odd that they let him wear that all the time, but they tell a Maquis to take off the, a Bajoran to take off the earrings.
Row. Yeah, that's just because Riker's not a very nice person.
No, and he's a jerk.
But what I liked best about Worf's sash later on was when he went into the house of Martok, right? And he took that house emblem off and slid that other one on. Like, you just think it's a part of the sash, but he's actually given a different piece to put on there to show what house he's a part of. I really thought that was cool.
Kind of like a Boy Scout badge.
Right. But you can't have both. You got to just take one.
Right,
off.
you're here or there.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll keep saving the Klingons. We'll save Worf and stuff because we want to get to the Klingons at the end here. But the aliens have changed all the time, and I think that the Andorians look great in Enterprise, and I can only hope that the rest of the aliens that we see look as good as they do in Enterprise. Like the next race to talk about is the Tellarites. Tellarites look fantastic in Enterprise. A lot of people are upset that they had fingers instead of hooves, but I don't know. I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me.
I didn't. You know what? I never even thought of it until you just said it.
I never really noticed the hooves in the original series myself, but I just noticed how bad the makeup looks in the original series.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, well, it's got to be hard for Star Trek to keep up because you have the people who are like purists, and it upsets them if everything's not exact. But I wouldn't want them to look exact. Like you said, they look terrible in the original series. They look phenomenal in Enterprise. I don't want them to go backwards and make I don't want them to leave the race out.
Right.
'Cause that's the only way to do it. You'd have to leave the race out completely. I don't want
Right.
them to do that. I don't want them to look like they're from the 60s. Like, come on, this is terrible. You'd be so upset then. So you can't really make everyone happy, so I'm glad they're making me happy.
I'm glad they're making me have to. But yeah, like the Tellarites, the way that they changed them, like, because what I didn't like about the Tellarites is that, their skin was so smooth and like their eyes looked funny in the original series, because you really couldn't kind of see them. They just looked weird and it bothered me. And the giant porcine nose that they had it was a little over the top that they were this piggish race, right?
Right.
They were just literally like the makeup was like pigs. It's like the cowardly lion in Wizard of Oz, right? It's just like fake makeup to make them look like a lion, but you can see it's a person. And the way that they changed it for Enterprise is just outstanding. They're wrinkly and they got this weird greasy long hair, and they look like Tellarites, but they look different. They look modernized.
Yeah. They just overall, it's just a better product. I mean,
Yeah.
It's just more believable. It's more realistic looking. They didn't, like you said, there's something wrong with their eye. They didn't look real. They didn't like that. Those particular evolutionary traits would have lasted. It just wouldn't. How do you fly a starship with hooves? How do you can't really see. How are you doing all these things?
Right.
And then and I think the look in Enterprise fit their temperament better than it did in the original. It just they seemed like they'd want to argue with you all the time. They'd just want to be a problem.
Yes. That's the personality trait that I really liked about the Andorians, too, is that they're like an argumentative species. And I like that scene when when he's like yelling at Hoshi. I can't remember all the stuff that he says, but when he's just like, he's insulting her and she's like, good, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, they were great. My favorite scene with them is actually an early on scene. An early on scene when they find that the Vulcans have that secret base for spying on them. And he was just arguing. He was really just arguing with Archer at first to argue with him. And then they find out, oh no, we're right. They're really there. And then I like when he comes.
Well, that was Andorians. That was not Tellarites. That was Andorians.
No, I'm saying Andorians.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know why I went back to Andorians though.
Because they're awesome.
They are. He's my favorite. He's played everything, but he's my favorite actor.
Jeffrey Combs.
Yes. Yeah, he's played so many roles, and then the Andorian one from Enterprise is my favorite of them.
On my last rewatch when we did the From There to Here, I really, really developed an appreciation for Brunt.
No, he's a great character.
Yes.
But I don't dislike any of his characters. I mean, I wanted to strangle some of them, but I didn't dislike them as characters. He played everything so well, and I didn't really, I guess because I watched a lot of this stuff when I was younger, I didn't notice it was all the same guy.
Right.
And then I rewatched, I'm like, wait.
That's him.
Wait. He keeps being the jerk.
And there's that episode in Season 7 of DS9 when he's Brunt and Wei-Yoon.
Yes.
In the same episode.
Which is awesome. And Wei-Yoon's another one of his characters that are great.
That scene when Worf snaps Wei-Yoon's neck and just kills him. It's like,
But
I love that.
One of his best parts about him being Wei-Yun was, and we keep going way off topic, but one of the things that's great about him being, there's so many different Wei-Yuns, because they just keep pumping a new one of him out, that they each had kind of a different personality quirk. And then you had the one that like flipped to the other side and then killed himself.
Such a great episode.
Yeah, it really was. And then you're like, when he kills himself, you're like, man, that's the one I wanted to live. I'm stuck with this other one.
These douche ones. Well, let's get to the race that we want to talk about here, and that's the Klingons. And, I don't know. It frustrated me so much when you just see all these responses from people and how they're like, oh, this isn't Star Trek. I hate Star Trek, and I hate CBS, and I hate these people. And when this fails, like, I hate when I see that. Like, when this show fails, it's like, come on, why would you be wanting Star Trek to fail? Like, give me a break. Why would you want that?
Yeah, I don't understand it, and I've seen it a lot, and it seems to be ramping up a little bit with some of these people. But I just feel, like I said, there's always been kickback to every single series that's come out, and nobody wants new people to get involved. Look at the hatred towards JJ verse. If you don't like it, just don't watch it.
Right.
I mean, it's that. Don't go to the movie theater and don't buy the DVD. As much as you don't like it, or you as being anyone we're speaking to that doesn't like it, it brought my son, my wife, and a couple of my friends into Star Trek, who are now going back and watching the old stuff that they didn't necessarily know about or like or care about, and now they're enjoying that. My wife did the whole rewatch with me from Enterprise through, and she never would have done that if they didn't have the new Enterprise and the new crew with Zachary Quinto and Christopher Pine?
Christopher Pine, yep.
Fine. She likes those actors. She didn't care about Kirk and Spock before she watched the movies. And now she goes back and watches them.
Like, see, when I saw those Klingons, I mean, we didn't get a good look at them. And that's the other frustrating part, right? Is they almost kind of look like the Klingons that you saw in Into Darkness, right? I mean, those Klingons you saw in Into Darkness, they didn't have hair like Worf and them had. They just had the, just the forehead ridges and these earrings and stuff all over their faces. Right? These piercings.
Right. I mean, and I think something that's bothering people is the costumes didn't really look right. But we've gone through this already. In the original series, they were just kind of mean-looking men. And then by the time we get to Next Generation, they're more stocky. They're really built, and they got these forehead ridges that are really impressive, and they don't look anything like Klingons. And at no point did I say to myself, those aren't Klingons. I mean, I guess some people did. Yeah. But we all got past it real fast. Then we went back to Enterprise. They still looked like the Next Generation, more or less. They looked like the Next Generation Klingons. And they gave us I know some people didn't like the excuse, but they gave us a plausible excuse that Kirk was just hanging out with ones that were part of a failed experiment that gave them all a disease and they died off.
Yep. See, for me, it's, Star Trek, there's so much discontinuity anyways. It's frustrating that people expect an explanation for every type of continuity error that there is. When I just recently read the 3-part series, the Legacy series that came out last summer, and it was honoring the 50th anniversary of the original series, and there was Klingons in it, and they're talking about honor and Batleths and Kahless and all this stuff, and it feels weird to me to know that I'm in the original series and have these Klingons talking about this stuff, because that's not how they talked in the original series at all for the Klingons that we saw. So for me, that's weird.
Yeah, I'd rather them, if they're going to make a book about the original series, it should be those Klingons.
That style and how they acted. Like they were just mustache-twirling villains at that time. That's all that they were.
Right, they were literally stand-ins for the Russians. I mean, that's what they were, and they were, very a lot of liberties taken with the character itself. But that's who they were. They were the stand-ins.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's me and that's us, and I'm so excited for Star Trek to come out. So many people as well, they're so frustrated with how long it's taken to come out, but that's production. I was so excited for Westworld to come out. It was supposed to come out last January, right? But it got delayed till the fall.
Yeah, I mean,
things happen all the time.
Yeah, I would love to already be watching the episodes, but I'd rather them
do it
as
right.
many people said, get it right. And I don't mean make everyone look exactly how they should, but just get the stories right, get the premise of what Star Trek is correct. I mean, even talking about the new movies that came out, if they had done that instead of using Khan as a story, but if they had done the second movie and gotten it right, more people would love the new movies. Mm-hmm. If the third movie, in my opinion, Beyond, was what Star Trek's supposed to be. It was character growth. It was him, a philosophical thought of him trying to be his father and then, spoiler alert, not realizing he doesn't have to be his father. I don't want them to miss those points. I don't want it to be Stargate. I don't want it to be Dark Matter, where, there's a lot of cool action and there's space battles and people running down the planets to fight. There's got to be a bigger story. And now that you have these new 13-episode seasons where it's all one right after the other, that story needs to be much broader than it's ever been before. Even more broad than it was for Enterprise's third season, which was a single season about terrorism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got it. Right on. Well, is there anything else you want to add to this discussion here tonight, Patrick?
No, I think that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we covered all the bases,
Optimistic. I'm optimistic about the new show. I think it's going to be the best Star Trek series ever because I like the format of television and how television is working right now. The type of stories that are being told on TV right now are wonderful. So I'm very excited for Discovery, and I hope that the aliens look different because I want them to look great, and they can do lots of things now with makeup that they couldn't do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait. I think it's going to be an amazing show. I think it's a great show. And another thing people complained about was that they didn't like that it was going to be on the streaming network instead of on regular television.
I have is Netflix right now myself. I don't have cable or satellite.
Right, well, that's just it. Most people are going to that. And not only that, but Star Trek has always launched episodes, networks.
Formats and networks, yeah.
Voyager literally was just created as a launch for UPN. It did pretty well. It did 7 seasons, Yeah. So to think that that's a bad thing in the way our society is moving, I can't see that blowing up in their face unless people make it, unless people wish for it to fail.
And I don't think that it will. I mean, look at cable. I mean, nobody thought that, you want me to pay for television? I can get it over the air for free back in the 80s or whenever it was that cable first came in. You want me to pay for television? No.
Yeah.
Well, now you pay. I mean, that's why I don't have satellite, is because I don't want to pay $100 a month for satellite, right? So I've got Netflix. We don't get it on Netflix in Canada. Right, so there's Crave, which I'm going to have to pay for. It's another service that I'm going to have to pay for, right? We don't have it on Netflix in Canada. It's available on Netflix everywhere in the world except for Canada and the U.S. And I don't care that I'm going to have to get another streaming service to watch it because you know what? I'm going to buy the frickin' DVDs too when they come out.
Exactly.
Blu-rays, and I don't know. I mean, I will always buy it's Star Trek, and I don't know.
I've actually purposely held off getting the CBS All Access till Star Trek comes out so that I get counted as a number for them particularly.
Right.
So if they're deciding, did this show really do well, they're going to look back and go, well, we only had 10 members, then we had 200 members the week it premiered.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope other people are doing the same.
Right on. Well, talking about the changes in aliens is not the only thing we've been talking about here on the network. So take a quick listen to this little clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Standard Orbit.
The ultimate fantasy was being called the ultimate fiasco, the ultimate fallacy, the ultimate F-up. And one girl on Sunday afternoon, she tells a story, they were walking to dinner, and she says, oh my God, you guys, they were talking some of these, snarky names. She goes, no, you guys, listen, we've just survived the Con of Wrath. And they all died laughing.
Warp 5.
At that time, PTSD was not even a diagnosis. We had for generations had different terms to describe issues with soldiers' heart, combat fatigue, shell shock.
Melodic Treks.
I have a big love in my heart. My top 3 episodes are Where No Man's Gone Before, Believe It or Not, The Alternative Factor, and The Lights of Zatar.
I just almost passed out.
Meta Treks.
For me, just as soon as Quark goes under the knife, it
is not essential Trek philosophy.
Something seriously goes wrong. Not for me, no.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Well, I just want to thank you very much, Patrick, for coming on for these 2 special episodes and offering something special to the Warp 5 listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anything I can do to help you out or help out the listeners that come back episode after episode.
Yeah, right on. We've got some great stuff coming up for you. I mean, the next week's episode we've already recorded. It's Phyllis Strong. We have the interview with Phyllis Strong, so that'll be coming out on the 31st. Right now, tentatively, we've got an interview planned with Gary Graham, who played Saval, so that'll be coming up. So try and find that feed in the Babel Conference if you want to add some questions to it that you'd like us to ask Gary Graham. And we're going to be doing a commentary on the episode Carbon Creek, so that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're trying to see what kind of guest we can get on to do that commentary with us, and we've got a few people in mind. So stay tuned. We got lots of great stuff coming up, and spread the word, tell everybody. I mean, even if Enterprise is not your favorite Star Trek series, I think we're doing a lot of great stuff on this podcast right now. We got a lot of great interviews, and I think it's even if you're not an Enterprise fan, it's a great listen. So share it with your friends, share it on social media, and if you want to help support the network, please visit patreon.com/TrekFM, and anything you can contribute there will help us out. At the $5 a month level, you can get access to Patron Zone, which is where we have exclusive content as well as early releases. At $15 a month, you can get on the Patrons Roundtable, and at $25 a month, you can have your name listed as an associate producer. And we've got a couple of great associate producers here on Warp 5. Our host, Floyd Dorsey, who's away this week because, again, he's teaching and he's got a busy schedule. So Patrick is helping me out while Floyd is away for these 2 episodes. But have no fear, Floyd's not going anywhere. He's back next week, and then we're back to our regular every other week format, and he'll be on those. But he's the associate producer for this show as well, along with Mike Morrison, who's a host of Metatrex, and we've got ourselves 2 new associate producers. We got Tim Cooper and Justin Ozer. I'd like to thank you guys very, very much for your support. And Patrick, you're a supporter of the network. You support Metatrex. You're an associate producer over there, aren't you?
Yeah, I got in a little over a year ago, became an associate producer for Metatrex for Mike Morrison and Zachary Fruling, and I haven't looked back. It's been a great experience. And patrons our associate producers are exploding all over the network right now, which is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
It helps the network. It keeps guys like me able to come on and talk to people about Star Trek time to time, and it's just an awesome experience.
Well, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you and talk to you about how right we are about Klingons being okay for Discovery?
Well, if they want to agree with me, they can find me at Magic Drop 5 on Twitter, or they can find me in the Babel Conference. I'm pretty much there every day.
And the Babel Conference is Trek FM's listeners only group on Facebook. Just type in the search bar, look for Babel. That's Babel. And if you want to find Floyd, he's always on the Babel Conference as well. He's not on Twitter too often. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me on the Babel Conference as well. And if you want to, coming soon, if you want to follow me on Twitter with my other account, I'm starting a Alfred Hitchcock podcast, and that'll be coming very soon. You can follow us at Good Evening Pod on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook as well, Good Evening Podcast. And we're looking to have a lot of fun with that show. That's my friend Tom and my friend Chris. So if you like Hitchcock, check it out. Well, right on, Boomers. Thank you very much for listening, and join us again next time for another episode of Warp 5.